Welcome to this session where I'll be explaining how to create a DAX dynamic date table from your data set and using the month offset for filters. Okay, let's open the Power BI file. Great. So I've been provided with this file, the sales data, and all I have been given is an Excel spreadsheet. So we don't have any date dimension coming from a SQL database or an Excel file. Would have to create that date table within the Power BI model, and it would also be dynamic based on the date range that we have in the sales extract. Okay, the first thing we want to do is find out what is the minimum and the maximum date of this sales extract using the date due, because that's the date that will be driving all the metrics, date due. So I go and create the min and max order date. There we go. And the max. Great. And we would find out in a minute what that is. So the earliest order date is, remove those filters. Okay, great. So the earliest order date is 3rd of Feb 2021, and the latest order date is 2025. Okay, great. But what I want is I want this extended from the 1st of Jan 2021 to 31st of December 2025. So I want that to drive the date table. So to create the date table, it's been created already. But if we're doing this from scratch, we go to modeling, create new table, and we have this blank area of the formula bar. We type in the date as the name of our dates table, and then we have this measures. So the first thing I do is I create a variable, chuck in the minimum date, put in the end date, and get the year of that, get the year of the end, and chuck that into a calendar function. Okay, and the calendar function takes two arguments. You have the start date and the end date. My start date here is using my start year, using the date function, and putting the year and the month. In this case, is the 1st of Jan, so 0101, and December 31st, end of the year. So that gives me a date table. But all I have in that date table is really just this field here. And then I would need to create all these other calculated columns of that date field. There are several ways to do this. People have done this with Power Query, but we're doing this with DAX right now. So click on that to see how that measure was created. Start of month on the date field, that's the first day of the month. First day of the year will be start of year on the date field. Last day of month is end of month on the date field. Last day of year is end of year on the date field. We'll come to month offset in a minute. The month name is using that format. Short name is using that format on the date field. Month number is just the month on the date field. That gives us the month number. And the year, we use that one. To calculate the year month, it's just concatenating the year and the month. This if statement is necessary to prefix the Jan, so from 1 to 9, so to September, we want that to have the 0 before it, and then from 10 onwards we want that to remain the way it is. So that's why we've checked the length, and if it's a length of 1, prefix it with 0, else just display the number. That's what's happening there. And here, slightly different. All I want is just the abbreviated month name and concatenate that with the year. The other thing you would do is sort your month names by your month number. So you click on the field, click the sort by column, you have your month number sorted by that. Same thing here as well. Click on that, sort by column, month number. It gets a bit tricky here for the year month. If we look at that, I've sorted it by that, but if I just remove that for a minute, and remove this for a minute. Okay. Great. So so we see the impact of that here. I have used the one at the top is that's this one with the name prefix. So we see that this is giving us in a kind of alphabetical order. It's not what we want. What we want is chronological. And if we check the other one, which is just the month and the number, see what that's doing. That's giving us what we want, because that's good. But then if we said, okay, fine, let's sort this by this, since this is well ordered, let's see if that helps us. So we sort it by that other one, and swap that around. See the impact of that. Great. So that works. Brilliant. Great. So move on to month offset. Month offset, as the name implies, is just counting the total number of months away from today. So that's grabbing the today function, getting the first day of the month of today, and doing the date diff in month from that day. And then using that to calculate your month offset, multiplying that by -1 because you don't want the negative to appear there. So for this month, it would be 0, and then subsequent ones would be 1. But if you're further down, it would be there minus. Okay. Okay, so that's month offset. I'll be explaining why we brought that in a minute. Great. So here we have this chiclet slicer of years. Chiclet slicer was brought in from App Store, and that's it there. That's why it's coming into this area. These are the standard visualizations from Power BI, and these are the ones that's been imported into the model. So that's the chiclet slicer, and I've just put in the year in there. Okay, now what's happening here is, of course, this slicer is controlling the whole report. But the requirement is I want to select as many years as I want here, but then the only year I want displayed here is the latest year. So for instance, right now we have all the years displayed up until 2025. But if I want just 2021 and 2022, excuse me. So that's giving me 2021 and 2022 as expected. But what I do want here is I only want displaying 2022. So how do we achieve that? I've used a month offset to do that. So I click on the visual, grab my month offset into the filter on this visual, select top N. Since we have 12 months in a year, I do top 12 and I drag month offset, the value to filter by, and I say apply the filter. So that should give me the latest 12 months, right? Great, that's what I want. So this would always give me the latest year. If I go into 2023, I should see that. 2024 and 2025. Okay. Great. Okay. So that's giving me the month offset. Yeah. And the other thing, just to raise, I mean, anybody can leave their comments in there. This is just a shout out, really, to Power BI or anybody there that's found a more intelligent way to approach this problem. So I don't know if anybody has gone through this. So now this month is definitely blank, right? So if I click on it, that is the total sales and it's blank. The reason why it's showing blank is that's when you create a measure. So that's the measure there in Power BI. When you create, sorry, so click on that one. So that's the others blank. So when you create a measure, like standard measure without anything, just the measure, if the measure had no value, it would come as blank on your cards. On the charts, it's a good idea to have it as blank because just to check that you don't have all the zeros coming up. You see that's neat. We have only that one, and but here we have all the zeros, which is quite untidy, isn't it? So the problem is, I mean, if you need to use the same measure as a card in this instance, which is here, and as a visual, that means you have to create two measures every time. You need to have a blank version of that measure, which is just untidy and unnecessary. So if there's anyone out there that knows a better way to achieve this without having to create two measures for every single measure you want to use for your card and your charts, please leave your comments in the section or put a link on how we can do this. Or let's open a request in the community area for Power BI to actually look into this, a more intelligent way to deal with the situation where you have you just want to be able to use a measure within the chart as blank and use it within the card with the zeros, so that when I select that, it should come out as 0 there. That one I've had to create a different measure and just add 0 at the end of it, so it comes out as 0. But when I'm using it in the chart, I don't want the 0. So yeah, that's for anyone that wants to give that a go. Any helpers out there, please leave your comments in the section. Thank you. That's all for today. Cheers.